Yeah, good evening, everyone. I know you have a lot of expectations about today's webinar. It's on recent developments in early childhood care and education. And we have eminent panelists and also a great moderator. And my duty is to introduce our moderator. And today's moderator is Anuradha Shivaram. She is the principal of Manipal School, Mangalore. She has been serving in that school for a long time with the Manipal group which runs the school with the Pearson Group for a long time. And she has proved her quality and credibility by working in Manipal School. And Manipal School always stood as one of the best schools in Mangalore and Karnataka and all over the country. And she has received plenty of awards at her personal level and also at the professional level. I welcome you, Anuradha ma'am, to this great session. I hope you will make it a wonderful one through your moderation. Without taking much time, I hand over the podium to Mrs. Anuradha Shivaram, Principal, Manipal School, Mangalore. Over to you, Anuradha ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Radhakrishnan sir, for those kind words. Good evening to all of you who are watching and listening in. I'm here to moderate a discussion centering around early childhood care and education and what's important to address to create a good environment to do so. Several studies have shown that early childhood care and education are crucial for the brain development, cognitive growth, and even for the long-term prosperity of individuals. There has also been a realization that without improving ECCE, it would not be possible for India to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. This awareness has led our policymakers to include ECCE in the national education policy with an objective to provide every child in the age range of 3 to 6 years access to free, safe, high quality, developmentally appropriate care and education by 2025. With the promise of a flexible, multi-phased, multi-level, play-based, activity-based, and discovery-based education. Joining us today is a panel of esteemed guests from different walks of life and subject matter experts that are here to contribute to this topic. Mr. Jimmy Appen heads ECC at Pathways International School, Noida. He is a passionate educator with a rich experience working abroad and in India for over 30 years. Jimmy firmly believes that every child is unique and the role of a teacher is to enable each one to actualize her dream and potential. Our second panelist, Mrs. Sureka Dey, specialist educator, storyteller, education consultant, has over 30 years of diverse experience as a teacher, curriculum director, and an education consultant in various geographies, and is a specialist in ECC and uses the multiple intelligences and multiple sensory teaching methodologies. Welcome, ma'am. Our third panelist, Mr. Alnar Sainuddin, is the head of research and development at EDLEAN. He brings with him the expertise of heading a research and development department. He is a curriculum development expert who is a consultant for more than 50 schools in India and abroad. He calls himself an inspired educationist and trainer who strives to bring about a paradigm shift in the way we teach. A warm welcome to all the panelists on behalf of Panchatantra Planet. Panchatantra Planet, with a vision to nurture and develop talented teaching communities blended with values, knowledge, wisdom, and technological skills, and to provide India-centric education through modern techniques for global citizenship, has been conducting numerous programs in spite of the COVID-19 restrictions, which is indeed commendable. A warm welcome to the board of directors of Panchatantra Planet. A hearty welcome to all the participants, principals, vice principals, coordinators, teachers, and my dear colleagues. We know that most of you are advocating early childhood development in your community. If you have any questions, we want you to post it in the chat box, and I will field the questions to the appropriate person. Before I initiate the panel discussion, I would request Mr. Binumon to present the upcoming programs of Panchatantra Planet. Over to you, Binumon, sir.
Thank you, Anuradha ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, Panchatantra Planet, as rightly mentioned by the moderator, is a very young organization started just before 3 months back. With an asset of the experience of 6 principals from our country. And we are trying to educate the whole India and abroad through the experiences of different resource persons from different backgrounds and different walks of life. So far, we have conducted 18 webinars based on different topics, individual sessions, and panel discussions. Today is also, we are with eminent panelists and moderator for another session that is very relevant. But we are coming up with a lot of different programs. And our next program, you can see in the screen, our leadership series, August episode 3. It's a very different program for students. Sri Chandrachud Ghosh's controversial book, Conundrum, you may have heard about the book. This book is trying to depict the mysterious disappearance of Subhash Chandra Bose, and it always focusing on the historical background and incidents which happened those days. And one discussion with the students and the author is going to happen on 18th of this month. We have selected few students from different schools from India itself, and our eminent moderator is Anjali Rasdan. You might have heard about her because she's one of the famous educators of our country. She's moderating the session, and around 6 students are going to interact with the author. And Sri Chandrachud Ghosh is also delivering a 30 minutes address based on his book. So I request all the principals and educators, those who are here, kindly block your date and just request even your students, children, to join in the session. Definitely they will get a deep insight into the historical importance of those days and what happened to Subhash Chandra Bose. And next is a very relevant session that is coming up, Trends in K-12 Leadership, Teachers as Instructional Leaders. That's going to happen on 28th of this month, August 28th, please. Trends in K-12 Leadership, Teachers as Instructional Leaders on 28th August, Saturday at 4:30 p.m. This session also will have 3 eminent panelists. One is Dr. Sarvesh Naidu, Executive Vice President, TRINS Group, Dr. Dheeraj Malhotra, author and principal, NPS Guwahati, and the moderator of this session is, one more panelist is Mrs. Hilary, Principal, GEMS Academy, Kochi. And the moderator of the session is Santosh Kanavalli, Principal, Subbaya Central School, Tirupur. So one more session is also coming up with eminent panelists and moderator. So I request all the teachers and the principals, those who are assembled in this platform, get ready for two or 4 coming up webinars. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for that update. I'm sure all of us will block our calendars and be there for these wonderful sessions. So moving on, in today's session, we will discuss and focus on the recent developments in early childhood care and education. The study of childhood has always been greatly influenced by a Western middle class idea of childhood without taking into account the cultures and diversities of different places. Today we have with us an international practitioner. Jimmy, this question is for you. What do we refer to when we say international perspective and practices in early childhood education? What are the common elements or features in these approaches? In other words, what do they focus on? Can you enlighten us?
Oh, thank you so much, ma'am. In fact, hello everyone, good evening, and I'm really happy to see all the participants. Focusing on the question, what actually is the international perspective? I would like to share with you something which will give us a little more focus and insight into it. So, when we talk about the international practices, so what is the international practices? There are practices everywhere, whether it is in India or abroad. There are good practices everywhere. And we have put together all the best practices from around the world so that the child gets the best experience. Before we delve into this one, let's also have a look at what is the objectives of a preschool or the preschool education. As we all know, the first and foremost objective of preschool is the physical development, the social development, the emotional development, the cognitive or the intellectual development, the linguistic or the language development of among the children. And that will also bring about the independence, how children become independent and also how they become interdependent. They understand the community, how they need to collaborate. In other words, as the Australian education system says, or the EY says, it's a sense of belonging, being, and becoming. Where are we born, who we are, and the current, and how we move forward to making use of what we have learned. And there are a lot of people who have contributed to this international perspective, whether it is Froebel, who brought in the kindergarten, or whether it is Maria Montessori, who introduced the Montessori for us, Erik Erikson, speaking about the developmental stages, or Jean Piaget, we know about the schemas, or Vygotsky. And of late, if we look into, we also have Loris Malaguzzi, who comes with the Reggio approach, a completely different perspective altogether, which majority of the countries across the globe are trying to practice, and recognizing that the environment, the role of environment in early education, how nature plays a crucial role, and how the importance is given to the child, and how the child becomes the author, or the child expresses himself or herself through the 100 languages, whether it's music, whether it is art, all that the child is expressing, we call them the 100 languages. And of course, we know about Howard Gardner, who talks about the different styles of learning. So they have all contributed to making this international perspective. And more so, if we talk about the IB approach, or the International Baccalaureate, which is also very predominant and going across the globe, across the countries, so that everyone can have the same mindset everyone can have the same approach and learning. And here, the focus from learning or teaching, the focus is on the learner. What are the skills that we are going to give to the learner? How do we help children to be open-minded, or to be reflective, or to be inquirers, or to be knowledge, to be principled? How they become and acquire the skills that they need so that learning becomes. Therefore, to put it together in the international practices, when I say it's the learner, the learning environment, the learning experience of these children, the role of teachers, the role of parents, how do we document these, the documentation, and finally, how are we able to showcase? So in this perspective, the major change is a teacher from a conventional role to becoming a facilitator, a mentor, a guide, and a friend. From the teacher-centric approach to a learner-centric, where the learner gets the predominance, where the learner decides, the focus is on the learner, whether it is curriculum, whether it is more than the content, it is the learner. And what does he want to learn? Why does he want to learn? So the importance of the question why takes a central place. From a pre-planned or well-designed curriculum and plans to the choice and voice of children, what we are preparing or what we are delivering, is it really required for the child? Is the child ready for it? Do we listen to them? So do we give an option to the child? So this is what the international perspective is all about. And again, it's not the ready-made answers that the teachers give them. Okay, this is A, this is B, this is C. Instead, when a child asks, okay, why is the sky blue? Rather than giving a ready-made answer, we wonder with the child, okay, that's a good question. Why is the sky blue? And enabling the group to discuss about it and let children discover, let children ideate and come up with their own findings. And that way they learn to be from individual learners to collaborative learning practices. And this is what I would put it up as the image of the child. How we give importance to the child, who the learner is, understanding the child in its true, in his or her true nature, and creating opportunities for the child to be a learner. And what is the learning process? How do we look at the whole process of learning? How they discuss ideas, how they investigate, how do they collaborate, how do they deliberate, and they come up with their own understanding and theories, and thereby strengthening their ideas and knowledge, which may last for days together. And of course, as I said, the role of environment. If you give them an open environment with opportunities to explore, naturally, they are going to engage and learn. And the 100 languages, how children, what they have learned, how do they put it across to us? And that we call it the 100 languages. Whether it is through play, whether it is outdoor, whether it is indoor, whether it is drama, there is no end to it. And then, of course, as teachers, how are we able to capture all these moments, put them together, and showcase the learning, assimilate it, document it, put it across, so that we have concrete evidences of the learning of children. These are some of the examples which we had been practicing in our own centers. And all these images are taken from my center. And how do we learn to respect children and give opportunity for their choice and voice? So that makes it really, really an international approach. Of course, play has a very important role. You take whatever methodology, play is an inseparable aspect of early years because it is the world that they live in. And play and loose parts go hand in hand. How we engage them, help them to explore. And here, the teachers are not just teachers, but they are partners in the learning. And of course, we cannot forget the importance of families, because families contribute. They form part of the entire exercise. They come in as specialists, they come in on special events, they come in as experts and make the learning really a wonderful experience. So this is what I would say as the international practices, and most of us are aware of all these things. We had been practicing it, but we have to make a conscious effort to ensure that is propagated. I hope that makes it clear. Yes.
That was awesome, Jimmy. Thank you. Thank you for that insight. Now, looking back on 2020, all that Jimmy said was, put on the back seat because classes had to be online and families and children had to adapt, to this unprecedented situation without much warning. Sureka, I want you to tell us how we are going to cope with this kind of an upheaval. What crucial change in the NEP has potential to impact early childhood care and education? And how will, will there be development in the lives of Indian children in post-pandemic VUCA world? Now, VUCA world, I say, because this is an acronym that was used way back in 1987 in the army, but now it has become very relevant with the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity of today's world. Ma'am, can you please throw some light on this?
Thank you, Anuradha. And thank you all of you for having made the time to be here today. Let me quickly share something with you. I feel, because I always work with the basics of the brain, the brains of all of I think humankind works in the same way. And once we understand that, it is very easy to look at this wonderful and I would say tremendous thing that the National Education Policy has brought down after 74 years to the early childhood level, from 0 to 6, and then of course up to 8 years old now, because they're looking at the play school, the preschool, and also the first and the second standard. And how do I begin? I'd like to share, a little bit about the brain and how we are going to take this curriculum and bring it to the level of our children. I feel there's no difference at all. The tools lie in our hand. And if we know how to use those tools, I think we can achieve what has been, looked upon by many parts of the world. And now from our country, if we are able to pull it off with a new policy, I think we will have a standing with all the top countries of the world when it comes to educating the little ones. And very, very rightly called it the foundation years. Why the foundation years? Let's look at the brain. We all know this, but I'll just go through it very, very quickly, that the most development happens between 0 to 5, 90%. Now, the brains at that point are like sponges. Anything you input to them is being absorbed. And this is what I want to, highlight with you, that there are some very critical periods in the way that the brain is developing. And specifically for language, if we miss it, then you can never get it back, because the neurons, the way that the synapses happen, the lateralization of the brain happens, we will lose it. So it's very important that we as educators know this, that there is a timeline for this. And foundational years, these are the children who are going to become the foundation of our adults 20 years from now. They are going to be the people who are going to hold this country. And they are going to be, the human resource of this country. So everything, I think, lies in the hands of us educators. So I won't go too much into it because we've already had Mr. Epen speak about the 9 intelligences. It just means there are 9 ways that all of us learn. And you'll find that, children who are exposed to all these 9 intelligences, the way that the cognition happens is different. Look at ourselves. We only have 1 or 2, maybe 3 dominant intelligences, but we could have had the ability to have them all. But what we can do is we can help our children with it. So moving on, there's a very interesting theory which came after the 9 intelligences theory from Howard Gardner. And this was that there are actually 8 roads into learning. And there are 8 ways that we can use in our classrooms that we can help with this learning. And they are all part of the 9 intelligences, but there's words, language, listening, there's a focus on the natural world, there is self-understanding, understanding who you are, it's self-reflection, actually. It's understanding our body. So it's kind of, it's all through physical experiences. Then there is social experience. There's also sequential pictures, visualization, music, and rhythm. So these are the tools that we have. These are the pathways that we have. And what can we bring in to make sure that we are, giving them knowledge using these pathways. Okay. So let us come back to the brain again. We need to have them balance the 2 sides of the brain. We know that there is the right hemisphere thinking and there is a left hemisphere thinking, but there's also a bridge of neurons. It's actually like a bridge which connects these 2 hemispheres of the brain, and we can help by bridging this by the kinds of activities we do with our children. What I'm trying to do here is to guide you into how we can actually achieve this with the curriculum that has been handed to us. The curriculum is going to be the same for everybody, but what are the methods that we're going to be using to bring it into our classrooms? Okay, so I think it was, Jimmy who spoke about play. And I want to take you all using play to a time, in thousands of years ago, because we have to start there. When man, as we evolved into tribes, we evolved and we came, the evolution has taken us to where we are. And to understand the brain, because of the recent developments, we need to go back there. And I want to give you this mind-blowing experiment which was done in Wales. Well, it was for me, and I want to share this with you. In 2020, 3 universities in the UK, I think it is University College London, King's College, and Cardiff University, looked at play, and they decided that they would take preschoolers from the age of 3 to 5 into the wilderness once a day, and the facilitators were told, let them do what they want. So the children were, what were the things they were doing? What we see our children do in the, in school also, if you have like a sandpit, they love to dig. And these children, the first thing that they did was digging. And then the facilitators noticed that from that, digging, they were picking up certain stones, but they were also picking a certain type of leaf. One group, the facilitator, when she reported this back, they assumed it is like they must have followed what the rest of the one child has done. So they found the same leaf as they explored. Okay. But they found this leaf was being picked up by not just one school, but for children from various schools in Wales, the same leaf. So the evolutionary psychologists got very excited. They said, what is going on? What is it in this leaf that is making the children pick that particular one up? And biologists soon confirmed that it was a leaf which was edible, and it was a leaf that had medicinal value. But how did these 3-year-olds know that? Then the evolutionary psychologists realized that information from previous generations is being coded in the DNA. And this is the information because of the survival of the tribes. When man was still, hunter-gatherers, they needed this. Yes, brought it back to our children. Why is it that when we are born, we are crawling, but we start walking very quickly at the age of 2? Children are walking. So there must be a reason for this. And they said, yes, it's because for survival, they had to hunt for food and they had to know all these things. So it's in our DNA. I want you all to remember that, so that when you think of play, it is not something that the children are just enjoying. And it is something which is very, very basic for the way that the brain learns. And how it's very difficult to look at only play in our classrooms, isn't it? We need to know how to amalgate this curriculum that we have with play, and also the 8 pathways I spoke about. So I wanted to give you an example. And this is what happened to me when I'm in a very remote part of India, and it's a forest area, it's in the mountains, and our school had a wide variety of children in it, including tribal children. And when I was, one of the stories that we were doing was a story about a fish and the sea. And I realized that the children didn't know anything about the sea. They'd never seen the oceans. So you all know that imagination and visualization is the starting point for us. So what I did was, my teachers and we decided, okay, what are the things that we want to teach them about the sea? And how do we bring in these 8 pathways? Now, the pathways include multisensory, isn't it? So we have to look at sound and touch and movement and rhythm and rhyme. How do we bring all that in and teach them about the sea by making it play also? And what do children love to do? They love to play with their napkins. It's one of the things that I've seen all the preschool children doing. They're always either folding napkins. So we said, okay, let's use that. And what are the words we want to teach them? And how do we do it? So we decided to make learning fun, we have to make it experiential. And what we did was, this is a song that we created, and we took the tune of the wheels of the bus. And this is how it went. So it was very easy. Once we did that, it was easy to create. And why I'm telling you this is, like, with simple, using our 5 C's, our creativity, our cognitive ability, our critical thinking, we can actually come up with simple ways to do this. And this is how I did it. I mean, we did it in school, and it's like this. The tune was of the wheels of the bus, because that was another one that they really loved to listen to and sing. So the fish in the sea go swish, 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 swish. The fish in the sea go swish, 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 all day long. The sand in the sea goes down, 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 down. Down, 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 the sand in the sea goes down, 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 all day long. The waves in the sea go in and out, in and out, in and out. The waves in the sea go in and out, all day long. The dolphins in the sea go up and down, up and down, up and down. The dolphins in the sea go up and down all day long. So this is like a known song, and I'm sure you can take any song in any language in India, whether the classes are happening in, whatever the language of the state is, you can still come up with ideas like this. So this is one way. So, I'm coming back to the foundation, I'm coming back to the brain, and I want to, if I have time, to do another one for you, which is really, really, why do we need to do things which get the children listening to you? Because you know that, 50% of our time we daydream. And it's very, very interesting, to see how the children relate to a concept like shapes, which is what they learn in preschool and in play school. It's such a difficult concept. It's mathematics. And what about things like parts of a house? And what about things like weather? How do I put that and make it interesting for them? So it's fun, and it's like something that the learning comes from in out rather than from out in. And this is a style of storytelling because that's my forte, and it's called a draw and a tell. And this is how it goes. I'm going to build a house. I'm going to build a house with windows, big and bright. So these are my windows. With chimneys tall, with blowing smoke, drifting out of sight. And when it is cloudy and raining, and I'm very cold, I'd like to go inside my house where I'm nice and warm. So with some simple story like this, immediately you can trigger off shapes, you can trigger off parts of a house, you can go into things like that, which are difficult for the children. And once you do things like this with them, they start observing because you want them to apply it around them in nature, isn't it? And this is what happens. And again, I'm coming back to VUCA that we spoke about. The fact that, this is a post-COVID era that they're going into. It is full of volatility. It's full of uncertainty. It's full of complexity, and it's full of ambiguity. Big words, but what it means is these children have to learn to survive. I brought back survival from the DNA, and we will survive because that is the strength of humankind. We will survive. And what happens is when you give this foundation to them, you are triggering higher order thinking skills using the arts, using play with the curriculum, and you will create a completely different type of thinking with the children. And before I go, I have one more thought to put inside your mind, which I didn't know. Yes, arts integration, absolutely. Because these are the tools that the brain, it's a left and right brain bridging that you want to do. And one last very important thing, which I didn't know till recently, languages. There's a language for cognition, has a language. And when you speak in mother tongue, the way that the brain lateralizes is different for somebody who's from Kerala, it's different from Bengal, it's different from, wherever else in the world you are, because the way you think changes. And this is very, very important, isn't it? If you start with mother tongue, you get a whole lot of people once they come into the workforce who have different ways of looking at problems. And this is what I want to talk about when, to the question Anuradha asked me about how you can, bring this together with the new curriculum and make it happen for our children. Thank you.
It was awesome, Sureka. Thank you. Thank you for all the
You're welcome.
music and the insights. Thank you very much. Moving on. Now, Sureka spoke about the, age-tested, the methods that we've been using all this while. But we are dealing with a new generation now, the Gen Alpha. These are the students, these are the children who were born with the devices in their hands. They don't have the patience. They're also called the glass generation because they just look into their devices. They're scrolling up and down all the time. They're, giving likes and whatnot, emojis. So can these methods work with Gen Alpha? Almanac, I would like you to throw some light on this.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And very good evening, in fact, to all the participants. And nice to hear the other panelists shedding some lights to what I'm supposed to talk about. And it's really connecting and interesting to watch. So I have a slide here. Let me share that. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Right. Okay. So in fact, we talked about brain, we talked about practices, international practices, and the evolving condition of practices across globe. And obviously, as ma'am said, a lot of things needs to connect with the brain. And obviously, the other thing, when we have a resourceful discussion about human beings, discussion about we cannot neglect the generation changes. It's happening for I think that to my knowledge there are 5 generations gone by, recorded based on 15 years gap. We got 5 generations, fourth generation have gone by, and now we are facing with the little ones. They are the new ones. They are called Gen Alpha. So before we get to know who are the Gen Alpha, before we used to have 4 generations. I belong to one among them. You also belong with one among them. So we have the baby boomers, okay, so which actually counted first, and then it goes to Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and the final one is Gen Alpha. So I have limitation of time to explain the details of the characteristics of each generation. Each one is typical, and they also have similarities. When it comes to Gen Z, has a lot of similar things that you can find even in Gen Alpha. And the Gen Alpha, as ma'am said, they are also called as Gen glass generation or global generation. They have that global perspective from the early stages of their learning. And so actually those students who are born, those children are born 2010 to 2025 will be considered as Gen Alpha, and they are only, we can call them highly impulsive generation, okay? Highly impulsive in nature. They don't have patience. They don't have time to read big paragraphs, but they try to grasp the thing faster than us, and they have the capability, and they use a different pathway for that. Let's see what are the 5 characteristics Gen Alpha has. So before, to address this, especially when it comes to Gen Alpha and the virtual learning, it's a challenge for teachers and educational community. And when it comes to the early learning stage, teaching them virtually and engaging them, and these Gen Alpha, as I said, highly impulsive, and they do not have the attention span lesser than of a goldfish. So it is to be considered, how can we engage them, because they don't want content. They don't want their teachers to bombard them with content. They want something else. So the shedding some lights on the characteristics will give us a kind of an understanding how to approach them in our classroom, whether it is offline or online. So social, they're very social. What do you mean by social? Not in our perspective. This social mean in terms of learning, they don't want the content to be delivered in the classroom because it is already available. It is in the fingertip. Okay, they know the digit. They are born into the digital era, and they can get the content at any time. Even my 2-year-old child, 2-year-old child, he knows exactly how to get information, how to get video, how to get the pictures through just a voice message. So it is amazingly, the content is free of cost and full. And why a teacher is required in the classroom, whether it is virtual or offline, to deliver a content. So they expect a socialization, mean they want experiences, whether it is offline or online. So experience is very important. That's what it is meant by social. And they are global in terms of, their nature is global because they are born into a world where the world is like a village. So they can connect with anyone from around the world anytime, and they have the access. So and whatever we teach in our classroom, it should be global in perspective. As the British curriculum said, obviously matching with the requirement of Gen Alpha. The things they deliver, it's global in perspective. So that's the another point. Another one is the digital. Obviously, everybody knows that they are so digitally involved and they're born into digital era. They need a digital device. We cannot remove the digital device from them and give them a book and pen. So it is very important to have the teacher to have methodologies using technology in the offline or online classes. So they like to learn with the help of digital. So as I said, these Gen Alpha has another thing is that the learning style of this Gen Alpha is VSK, visual, spatial, and kinesthetic. So it is obvious that they need touching and they need doing a lot of work inside the class. So digital devices cannot be removed from in the classroom. It should be given constructively so that they can engage with. So that's another point. And they are so mobile. What do you mean by mobility? Here, the mobility means obviously physical mobility. In terms of parents, they are, it's a VUCA world. Okay, so the parents are like, they get transfer anytime, because their working space, not only Kerala or India or some other states, even they go abroad at any time. So the students should be adaptable and resilient enough to cope up with the changes they come across, that the culture they are going to, the people they are going to, the city they are going to. So they should get that kind of a resilience from the classroom, not simply bombard them with the content, rather how to cope up. It is called social skill, or we call life skills, or social and emotional skill or competencies to be developed as an international citizen. So mobility is another factor of these people, and very important point for them when we consider whether it is virtual learning. Visual, they are so visual. They don't have time to read one paragraph or two paragraphs. Or yes, they are supposed to read books, but when it comes to, they are fast. They just don't want to spend time too much on this particular content. But if you give them infographic, if you give them smileys and emojis, if you give them graphic organizers, so they tend to learn faster. So in terms of, as a teacher, we have to provide them with the visual input, rather a lot of auditory input, and the content in the reading format. So they like to have a lot of input in terms of visual aid. So these are the major characteristics of the Gen Alpha. And when it comes to remote learning, one more very important point which I would like to add because we listened to the brain just now, and into a bit of deeper thing. When it comes to virtual learning, the students are distracted very easily. And an intelligent teacher will make a balancing approach of, one is a human approach, another one is a technological approach. We need to have the balance, because how do we do that balancing? The purpose of balancing is nothing. We should know how the learning happens in our brain. And generally it is set here in the panelists mentioned. Now I would like to add specifically three systems and two processes. Three system in terms we call RAD, or reticular activation, the lower brain, the reticular activation system, which is the filtering, the first filter of the brain, because millions of information is bombarding the place to enter into the thinking brain. But the RAD with the RAS, the reticular activation system, will control the entry whichever required. Okay, and then we have amygdala, which is a part of the limbic system. So amygdala, it has to be in not a stress mode. So when it comes to virtual learning, students if they are stressed, if they are not given the freedom to move, if they are not given enough things based on their needs, because we have needs based on choice theory. We have 5 needs, whether it is offline or online. The teacher should be equipped enough and competent enough to meet the needs of the children. If they need survival, we have to provide the survival need. If they want love and care, we have to provide through whether it is offline or online. So that meeting the need is important. When the child is met with the needs, the amygdala start producing, or the brain start producing. The next element is dopamine. So dopamine generation is very important, like the songs which just now we heard. It is a dopamine generating activity. A teacher can sing a song, put up some kind of games, virtual games. A lot of virtual online games are available. So with the help of the online games and songs, and at least every 15 minutes, teacher should have a song break, which we call, or any other kind of game break that will generate the dopamine, because dopamine is very important in terms of learning. If the students do not have dopamine in their brain, the information will not pass to the two filters, which I said, the lower filter and the amygdala. Then it goes to the prefrontal cortex, I mean the thinking brain, the higher brain. If it has to go and turn into a knowledge, the dopamine is very important. So it is very challenging for a teacher to generate the dopamine in the brain of the children. That's why they are getting distracted. So we have different strategies. One, as I said, the human strategies, which I will be mentioning later. Another one is the technology, which we will have to use it in our virtual classroom. So that's on that.
Thank you. Thank you. That was awesome, Almanac. I think a lot of insights into the Gen Alpha. Coming back to you, Jimmy. Now, we have spoken about the brain. Do you think play is important for brain development? How important is play in early childhood education?
That's right. So talking about play, which I would say play is the right of a child. Play is innate within us. We are born with a play, not only human beings, but look at all the creatures, all the animal babies, they all play. So what I want to start with is, let's just have a look into this video. Play is so natural to them. You give the objectives, you give them the background, you give them the resources, children naturally get engaged. We don't have to tell them anything how to play. So there are different ways of playing, there are different objectives for playing. So if you are to look a little deeper into it, let me start from here. So why play? And how do we make play happen? As I said, play is the right of every child. It's a joyful experience for them. And if I say what is play, it is an innate and creative, joyful, non-serious, interesting and recreative activity. And how do we know it is a recreative and interesting and engaging activity? Let's have a look at this one. Just a minute, sorry. So it's so interesting to watch children, and this all happened in the natural setting. The child with the ice cream, the environment is created and there is no instructions given. It is the innate nature which made the child to take out each of them, taste and see whether, how does it, each of these flavors taste like. The teachers are just watching, taking a back step and observing the children and taking note of what is happening. It's the most difficult task because when children are playing, engrossed in what they're doing, it's difficult for us to sit back, look, and observe and record. So let's have a look at another one. Can you see my screen?
No, we're not able
Okay.
to.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, now we can.
Yes. Just sorry, let me get the other way around. So here is a child who makes music on his own, because how he makes that, it's really interesting to watch. So can you see it? No.
No, sir, we're not able.
Just a minute, sorry. And this is what we talk about technology. This is what they had been talking about, you know, the alpha generation and the present generation. So we are still struggling with.
We are the digital migrants.
That's right. So, but I don't know why this is not playing.
Probably you have to.
Okay, so I'll share this later. But here you see a child who was engrossed in playing outside. He had different mediums. Of course, we have our own homemade, or you know, the drum set that you see. He started playing on this. After that, he started playing on the green grass. He went around and he saw the wooden bench. Then he saw the tiles on the floor. So he created music. He tried making sounds on these different objects. And how do they sound? What sound do we hear when you beat them with the sticks? And how the children are able to make the connections. He was conducting an experiment on his own. It came so naturally to them. So what I wanted to say was play is innate in every child. It's quite natural. And as teachers, we need to encourage, we need to create that kind of environment so that children can be completely immersed in that learning. So just wanted to add a few more points to what I was talking. What are the things that we need to keep in mind? I'll just share some pictures so that you can see them. Whether it is outdoor or indoors, you provide them with the resources, children naturally start using them. And they're able to figure out and create experiences, bond with one another, and find fulfillment. They are so engrossed in it that they are not worried about who is watching them, who is around. And look how they build the relationships when they are playing. They are in a world of their own. And that is the magic of play. It could be dramatic, pretend play, or imaginative play. But yes, always open-ended. Encouraging the child to take the lead, directed by the child, give them the resources that are required appropriately, accordingly, so that the child can be engaged. And these are all 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. How they make connections, how they find ways to play, how creative do they become through play. And that's why play has been given so much of importance in early years.
Absolutely.
See, whether it is messy play, for instance, the child is exploring with the Play-Doh. She was actually looking at the starfish, and she's trying to make a starfish with Play-Doh and trying to match it. Again, it is all motivation from within. It's intrinsic motivation. Nobody is directing it. And of course, we do have organized physical play, wherein they also learn to collaborate. They learn to interact with one another. They learn to follow the rules that govern them. It could be artistic exploration. It could be messy. It could be creating their own things. And how innovative children can become while playing. These are some of the examples. But yes, what do we do as teachers, as educators? We have to learn to sit back, relax, be at ease, observe every moment, capture them. Look for those aha experiences. What is that triggering in the child? What is happening to the child? Don't be an onlooker, but also you can get engaged. Trigger that exploration. Join in. Find the child within you. And once you start connecting with them, you will see the play becomes very, very meaningful and engaging. Ask questions. Wonder with them. Probe them. Challenge them. It's very important that we listen to them as well. Listen to their conversations when 2 of them or 3 of them are playing. What is the conversation that's happening? And that is where we'll know what is happening within the child. And of course, along with the play, remember to record important moments and the documentation so that we are able to share with others, share with the parents. And these are the evidences. We call it the MLV, or the making learning visible. How do we document and put it together so that we are able to see, showcase to others? So we can go on talk about play because there is no end to it.
Thank you for those insights. So play is not frivolous. It enhances brain structure, function, and promotes executive thinking. But our system does not recognize play. That's what we have seen. You know, there is one PT period in a week, and that is taken by the math teacher. This is what happens in most of our schools. Sureka, my next question is to you. What reforms are required for progress at the foundational stage across the country in terms of achieving goals set out in the NEP 2020? Ma'am, please unmute your microphone.
Sorry, everybody. Yes, we do need reforms. And while I was listening to the other panelists, I was, looking at Gen X and, what Jimmy was showing us with his children in his school. We have to come back to our country where 51% of our children are from the lower income strata. And to have a device is almost impossible. And I have seen this even in these areas. It is so that we have to think of what are the things that we need to do where technology alone is not going to be part of, because after all, at one point, we are going to see the pandemic, go away and children are going to start coming back to physical classrooms. So I think we have to take a look at it from there. One of the things that the reform is definitely we need to look at, there are many, parts to this one whole. And I would think of, the parents as one part, the management as one part, and also the children and the teachers. So and society too, to a certain extent. I think there is a lot of areas where we have to educate. So let's go back to, something simple as parents, just like Anuradha just mentioned. It's not only schools where they don't give them enough time to play. It's always, even at home, the parents do not think that if the children are playing, they're learning. And I think that education has to be, that the parents need to be educated about this. And that's one thing. We have to also look at teachers, their training, and also, the infrastructure. There's such a lot of work to do before we can achieve what we want by 2030. And I feel that, there is no need to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. If you look at the education system as it is, that is the old wheel. But if you look at, we can use that to actually help to move on. So it has to be a kind of a transition and an amalgam of what is we are speaking about that we can use to move on. So these are the areas that, really, need reform. And what I feel is, if we have the will, we can make it happen. And we can make it happen by training our teachers, by training by speaking to parents, making them part of the education process of their children, and look at some other aspects of learning. And one is stress. Toxic stress. Many of these children that come from these kinds of backgrounds come with certain amount of baggage. So how are we going to handle that toxic stress in our classrooms? Also, teachers, sometimes they're stressed because if you look at remote areas in India, reaching the schools is a big, is so difficult. The terrain is like that. So there are many, from infrastructure to the teacher training to the education of the parents. So there's a lot of work to be done. And I feel that when we look at the age group that we are speaking about, it is from 3 to 8. And I think it can be done in such a way using whatever is available, because you will still make a huge difference to the child. And just to give you an example, there's been a lot of research that children prefer, if you give them an expensive toy, maybe it's a computer, M-box or whatever they are called. And after some time, the child is happier to play in the mud outside. What does that mean? Few minutes into having a new toy or something which will engage him for a few minutes, it's only going to be half an hour. And they are much happier and they will play for hours in the water or in nature or digging somewhere or, putting, playing with some leaves and that kind of thing. So we can use all these things to help our children to take the curriculum and use things like that to help them move forward. Because finally, we're coming back to what has happened and how the DNA is coded. It's like so much part of the DNA that is already within us, the way the brain learns. So this is all that I want to say about the reforms, because you can't look, there's a huge mountain out there and we can't solve it all in one day. It will take us time. But I think we have to face the challenges. What we have seen with what we have gone through and the history of this world, many more difficult situations have come and we have overcome. So we can do it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for that beautiful insight. Moving on to Alminar, I have another question for you. Now, Surekha ma'am just mentioned that, 51% of our students come from economically weaker sections. And, this pandemic has shown us the inequity in our education like no other time. So how can we, what is it that we can do to address the equity part? And also, we are not able to, make our online classes engaging. We are not able to make our online classes inclusive. So what are the tools and strategies, protocols that we can introduce to correct the situation?
Okay, it's very relevant point, and normally education sector, especially in India, they always say they are always in this mode of slow pace change. Okay, I put it in bracket. So we have to get out of from that and think about rapid cycle prototyping. That's the norm of the 21st century. When we talk about the changes, as I said, it's not ignoring the fact that we belong to the nature. Obviously, we belong to the nature. And whether it is Gen Alpha or the baby boomers, we have a connection with the nature. And when it comes to the learning or teaching strategies or learning strategies, we have to balance these two. So in order to cope up with the 21st century needs, our children should not be neglected, or they should not be removed from the core sectors, because now the employment sector is being changed, the jobs are getting loose, different jobs are coming up, and our children, these what we call our Gen alphas, they are going to leave, and they are the only generation is going to see 22nd century. We don't know what is going to happen, and it's all highly volatile, and we have to teach them to face the uncertainty. That's what we talk about, the social and emotional factor, the soft skills and the life skills. And when it comes to, okay, for us, I'm a Generation X, all right, and many of you Generation X and Ys are there, and we have our own perspective. The way we were taught is not going to work anymore with the Gen Alpha. Okay, we need to understand the characteristics. And now above all, we do not have the physical classroom open except some places. We still have to continue with the virtual remote learning approach. So where we have to consider when it comes to KG to grade 2, the children are mainly, we can classify them into two types of learners. Okay, one is VSK. Majority of alphas are predominantly they are VSK. That's according to the research. Okay, so Mac Crindle in Australia, he is the social researcher, and he is the one who coined the word Gen Alpha. So based on his research, he said the majority of the Gen Alpha, they are not going to be auditory and sequential, but they are going to visual and spatial and kinesthetic learner. So it's like, the current curriculum has to revamp, according to me, because majority of our curriculum is in two-dimensional. Just give the content and the skill. We have to revamp it. When it comes to NEP, it is promising, right? So we are going to, India is going to promote and deliver a new curriculum for ECCE. All right. So when the educationists and those people working behind should be thinking about a three-dimensional curriculum. Obviously, that is what top-down approach. And the VSK children, they like top-down approach, not from the detail to global, rather global to the detail. So they are thinking backward. So it is right time to think about the curriculum and the instructional practices. Obviously, we have a lot of different instructional practices across the globe, and it's still evolving. So consider that when it comes to virtual learning platform or remote learning, we have the VSK. Majority of our Gen Alpha are VSK. So based on that, we have to do, teachers and the school, we have to have a proper unit designing, not necessarily the same way. How do you write your unit design, your lesson plan for your offline classes? We need to have a slight differentiation in terms of unit design and lesson plan, because there are two types of learning. One is synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous, obviously, what is happening live, and if the live is going to be a lecturing class teaching ABCD, the children are not going to be entertained, and they do not have the brain does not produce the dopamine, and rather they are expected to have experiences. So you need to have balancing synchronous and asynchronous activity. So you need to have a proper planning. You need to have a protocol, a virtual lesson execution protocol. I would be happy to share that protocol with the teachers, with all the educators who attended today's webinar, and it will be shared with you along with your certificate. So I'll be sharing with the organizer. So virtual lesson execution protocol will give you a kind of a hint. What are the elements in terms of physical, in terms of visual, in terms of kinesthetic? What are the things you can include? So a kind of a prompting remind you how to write a lesson plan for the virtual classes. So that protocol I'd be very happy to share with you, educators. And the other point is technology and human balanced instructional strategies. I really agree with the play is very important. It's high because from birth to age 10, it is very critical. Play is very critical for any child. Okay, so we cannot avoid that. So majority of the asynchronous activities should be the structured games and unstructured games, and it is also very important to add as element when it comes to virtual learning practices. Now, when it comes to asynchronous, we also make sure, because we record videos. So many of the recordings of the videos is I find unscientific. And who are you going to send these videos? Very much of highly impulsive students. They don't want to see the long duration based videos. They want just 1 minute or 2 minutes videos, sending a lot of information and knowledge to them. So when you record a video for kindergartners, grade 1 and grade 2, make sure it should not exceed the time. According to the scientific research, a 4-year-old child, your video should not exceed 1.5 minutes. That's a scientific research. So, and every grade you can add 1.5 minute addition. So for example, when the child goes to grade 1, okay, it goes to another 3 minutes. Okay, then go to another 4.5 minutes. So you can add 1.5 minutes additional as the child move from one grade to the next grade. So that's another important point for all the teachers, especially working in the early education sector. When you record videos, make sure it is very short. Okay, and a few reminders. With this, I will be concluding my presentation. Relationship is very important. Relationship. 3 times we have to say that. You need to make a constructive, meaningful relationship with each and every one of your classroom, through which, whether it is virtual or offline. Focus on how and why, not what. Please, teachers, our students are very much bright. They know the alphabets. They know the alphabets and they know the numbers. But they should know how to think with the numbers, how to think with the alphabets and sounds, right? So make sure the alphas are given why and how, because they are highly brilliant and the content is available with different sources. You know, one grade 2 child asked an educator and a teacher, they were discussing the whole 1 week. One teacher delivered a unit, 5 days unit, through virtual classroom. They could get that content within 5 minutes video from the YouTube. So where is the failure? We failed as a teacher because they could get one single video to match with the 5 days virtual lesson. So we don't expect our students to say like this. I'm talking about Gen Alpha. So make sure they should be experienced, whether it is virtual or offline. We have a 3-dimensional approach that I mentioned. It should be physically, they should be engaging, visually they should be engaging, and kinesthetically engaging. So we need to have a balancing of that's what we call 3-dimensional. You can have a look at the protocol and get some kind of hints about it. And families are very important partners in the especially in terms of virtual learning. We need a lot of support from the parents in terms of doing the work, looking at the creative work they are assigned with, not simply writing and calculating something. No, some creative work they should be engaged with. The family's help is required. And another thing is that music is very much of magical. We need to imbibe music along with our whether it is virtual or the live session, or we can send some videos for their emotional development and physical development as a part of the unit design. Then be kind to them, because if you find children absent, don't get restless. They may have different reasons. Okay, so don't get a kind of anger, don't show your anger to the child who was absent 2 days before. Okay, so make sure, be kind to them, get to know what happened with their life. So as they may have a lot of stress going on in their house. We don't know, maybe their parents are affected with COVID, so maybe we don't know. So all these situations we have to consider and approach them with kind mind and kind heart. So these are some of the reminders for all the educators, and I would be happy to share the protocol with you. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Alminar, for another insight on the virtual classes. I think we've almost reached the end of our time today, and it's been a most stimulating discussion, I would say. We have a lot of comments in the chat box where all participants are echoing my sentiments. So I think early education is no small matter. It is something that we have to take seriously and put a lot of our energies into making it, worth its while for the children who are spending time with us. So if we have any questions from the audience, we can take that now. I have a couple of them. I don't. So do you see any in the chat box?
Some people raise their hands. We can see.
Yes.
Renuka Chaurasia, you can unmute and ask the question.
Do you have a question for the panelists, ma'am? Renuka Chaurasia. You can unmute and ask. Oh, I have some, I have a couple of questions that people have sent to me before this session. So this is for, I think, Alminar again. What would be the long-term effects of online classes? This is a question from a concerned teacher.
Maybe I'm not qualified enough to comment on that, but I feel I experienced with my children. Okay, the thing is that why they go to school is very clear for me now. They are missing nothing. They are just one comment is enough to get the depression and the pressure they have. Is that they say, what do you feel from the online class? My child said, I miss my friends. I miss my friends. So it means it affects a lot emotionally and socially. So because the school is a platform where they have a lot of socialization and a lot of learning and unlearning happening between them or among them. And in terms of health, obviously, a lot of bad effects are going to experience. I think, and sooner or later we are going to experience. Being a parent, I expect that, especially in my child's eye, is getting affected. So I'm not that much of qualified to talk about that effect. But my child's one word is still remembering in my brain that I miss my friends.
Yeah, it's the socio-emotional learning, I think, which has taken a hit because of the online classes. But then there are going to be far-reaching effects of the on the children's health because of these continuous online classes. So there is another question from one of my teachers, again, wondering how to manage challenging behavior in the classroom once the children come back, because they've been at home for long, and now once they come back, the teachers are apprehensive whether they'll be able to handle the children or not. Jimmy, can you take that question?
Sure. In fact, to share with you all, I'm one of those lucky ones where we have reopened in a subtle way, having children coming to us. Not only children, we also have parents and we also have teachers. So we are trying to settle all three of them. The child needs to settle down. Even the long break for the teachers doing online, even their behavior has changed. So we need to be aware of that when we go back to school. And even for parents, I would say parents have become very sympathetic. They have understood what is the role of a teacher, and they salute us for what we do, because they say it had been so difficult for us. Hats off to you people, because if this is what online you are doing, we can imagine how offline is going to be. So it's going to be a learning process for all of us to be back. Yes, nobody has got patience. They have completely lost out on interpersonal skills. So what we have said and what we have done is create those experiences. Even when we are having the online classes, come to school at least for an hour once a week in small groups. So what we have done, we have created clusters where there are 6 children and a teacher, so that, it is a controlled environment.
A bubble, a bio bubble. That's
Yes,
what it
exactly.
is called. Yeah.
And it's working well for us. Well, we are giving each one of them the time to settle down. So this is what is happening.
I have another question, Sureka ma'am. I think you can take it. How can we use differentiated teaching in the pre-primary classroom? This is again from one of the teachers, a practicing teacher. Differentiated teaching in a pre-primary class. Any insights into that? Ma'am, please unmute your microphone.
I was asking you, maybe the teacher, is she here, or is she one of your teachers who's asked this question?
Yes, she's here.
When you are looking at differentiated, are you looking at children with special needs or inclusive
Yes.
classroom? Okay.
Special needs.
So,
yeah, and probably, slow learners.
ADHD or autism
Yes,
and all that.
yes.
Okay. I'll just tell you my experience of what I saw with the this age group in Singapore, because as you know, I lived there for many years. The government had a method by which all these children had to be integrated up to 2nd standard with the other kids. So it was like an amazing thing to watch how they helped each other and how they learned from each other. And I would like to just speak about one particular boy with Down's syndrome. What happens is when you have an inclusive classroom, the other children learn to understand and adjust with these children. That's sort of from a empathetic level and a social-emotional level that's happening. Yes. And these children also, especially the autistic children, they have a lot of problem with they are with emotion, with certain other problems with learning. So I feel that what has to happen is the same content, if possible, it has to be, the classroom has to be arranged in tables. So there are groups are there of children, and the same content has to be made in such a way that they can be used for more than, one group of children. So this is how I've seen it work. So what you will expect from the group, one group is going to be very different from the other group. So the teaching methodology also will change slightly, but you have to, because sometimes you are in a situation where you have 30 in your class and you can't spend only time using, and energy on one child. So you have to figure out. And so this is a difficult question. And maybe if you want, it will take a long time to go into how it can be done. You can always connect her with me, and I can have find out exactly what the issue is and then work with that child.
Yes, with the teacher. Thank you. Yeah, we'll connect offline and find more solutions to that. So thank you all panelists for all your insights. I think we have overshot the time, so I will hand over to Binumon to share the feedback link. I think it's already been shared. That's what I saw in the chat box.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. So we've come to the end of this session of this wonderful session. Big thank you from my side. And I would hand over to my friend, Mrs. Abhilasha Somayaji, for the formal vote of thanks. Abhilasha is the principal of SMS English Medium School, Brahmavat, and also the secretary of Karavali Sahodaya. She is a multifaceted educationist who is passionate about arts, literature, and theatre. She is recognized as a theatre actor, director, and writer. Over to you, Abhilasha.
Thank you, madam. A warm greetings to you all. I'm very much delightful to express my heartfelt gratitude to the persons who have made this session a mind-blowing discussion, which has given a lot of insights about the topic, recent development in early childhood care and education. First of all, our eminent panelists who made us navigate through the world of ECC, Mr. Jimmy Eppen, head of ECC Pathways Group of Schools, who enlightened us regarding international perspectives in ECC. Learners' voice and choice matter here. Teachers are partners of the students. He made it clear that children become creative and start connecting when they are allowed to play organized play. He gave some interesting tips also to the educators. Observe every moment and capture important moments to document it. Find the child within you, listen to them. Thank you, sir. You made us reflect on our practice. Mrs. Surekha Dev, specialist educator, she demonstrated the concept of experiential learning by singing a rhyme, playing with the napkin, telling interesting stories. Learning comes from in-out, not from out-in. She introduced 8 pathways to learning and proved that play is the basic thing for learning. Thank you, madam, for your wonderful insights. Mr. Alminar Sainuddin, head of research and development, has empowered us by explaining about Gen Alpha children who need experience, not the content which they hope to get from their digital world. We cannot remove digital devices from them, but we need to give them constructively. Songs and games break need to be given in the class for dopamine generation in the brain. So whether it is offline or online, teachers need to meet the needs of children and they have to balance human approach and technological approach. Thank you, sir, for your extraordinary presentation. Thank you. Being the moderator, Mrs. Anuradha Shivaram, Principal, Manipal School, Mangalore, led the session in the right direction and made the panelists go to the depths of the world of ECC and made the participants reflect on various aspects of ECC. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My sincere words of thanks to the Board of Directors of Panchatantra for organizing such meaningful and informative programs constantly to support the education practitioners. Thank you, sirs. We are ever indebted to you. I thank Mr. Robinson and Mr. Abhilash, the technical persons, for managing the Zoom platform during the session and designing all the promotion material. Thank you, sirs. It's really great to know that around 400 to 500 people have joined us today as the participants. I thank all the school leaders, teachers, parents, students who have attended the session with all the enthusiasm and interest to explore the world of ECC. Thank you all. I would like to conclude with a reminder. Please fill the feedback form. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Abhilasha. And I would hand over the session to Binu sir for another update on the upcoming programs.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone. We are coming up with a lot of programs in the coming weeks too. Stay with us because we are here to update you on a weekly basis. And from Panchatantra Planet, we wanted to thank sincerely to all the three panelists and also the moderator for making the session a wonderful one. And to hold the attention of 500 people for 1.5 hours. It is not easy. What I found is around 500 people joined, and those people remained till the end. That's a great success. That's the success of the panel and the moderator. And only around 20 people left before we ended the panel discussion. That's what I am telling. That talks about the standard of the discussion we conduct. And in the coming days, we are coming up with 2 to 3 programs we have already scheduled. And one you can see that with the Chandrajo next week, we have a discussion on conundrum. And Mrs. Sanchale Rajdan, you all know, she will be moderating it. Students also will be participating. You can attend, that will be wonderful. Your students can also attend 9 to 12 because students are interacting and they can come to know what is the secret behind the death of Subhash Chandra Bose, because there are a lot of controversies. We won't be going into politics, but we should know what is happening. That we will be discussing. Then after that, we are having another wonderful session in this month end with great educational leaders of international standards. That is Sarvesh Naidu sir, who was leading many international schools across the country and an expert in ICSE, CBSE, IB, IGCSE curriculums, and he is leading many of the institutes. And at present, he is the vice president of Trivandrum International School Group. And also we have Dr. Dheeraj Malhotra, and he is very popular, author and currently the principal of NPS, Guwahati, and also an international speaker on academics. He also will be attending. And also Hilary from GEMS Modern Academy, Kochi. She is the principal of that institute, and she will be also joining on that. She is from UK, and she will be also attending. These 3 panelists, and this session will be moderated by another eminent educationist of the country, that is Santosh Kanavelli, the principal of Subbaiah Central School, Tirupur. He will be moderating it. So, and also one more session is under construction, I can say, and we wanted to keep it till secret. An excellent person will be coming to our platform on last Wednesday of this month. We are not at disclosing because he is such an eminent person. So we are working with him to come out. And next month also, we are planning different type of art integration programs. So stay with us. We will be updating you on our social media platforms. Subscribe to Panchatantra Planet YouTube, and also we are providing links to join Panchatantra Planet. Make use of it and join. We need operators, we need excellent resource people, and all we need. So please submit your details if you are interested. Thank you once again, all the panelists, participants, moderator, everyone, those who attended. See you next Wednesday. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Almost.
So until we meet again,
Yeah.
adieu.